Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us for this our AMA for the month of February. My goodness, we are in it already this year and moving ahead with I guess full head of steam, as they say. So if you don't know anything about Kula DAO, we are an impact investment vehicle. What we're looking to do is basically bridge the gap between traditional investment opportunities and the world of crypto investment. We're backing a digital token with real world assets, but through that, we want to make an impact to communities worldwide, namely sometimes forgotten communities, sometimes underdeveloped communities. But our goal is to bring transparency into natural resources and real world assets, but then also benefit the communities that are impacted on a daily basis by these assets. So more than welcome to get on our website, download the white paper, and continue to participate in our AMAs. With that being said, please go ahead and post any questions you might have into the Q&A portion of this webinar, just so we've got a list of questions when that time comes. We'll do a little bit of updating here as we've got our year started. Happy Lunar New Year to those that celebrate. And with that being said, I'll pass it on to, let's see. I don't know. I forgot who do we decide on next?
We'll do Chris first.
Okay, Chris first.
Great, thanks, Micah. It's great to be with you guys again. It feels like the weeks go past really quickly, and it's like, oh, it's AMA again this week, and it's good to always update you guys on where the project's at. So thank you for taking this time to join us. And again, this time is your time, so any questions that you have, that's why we're here. Our updates are quite short at the moment as we just keep our heads down building. So please do ask your questions and get them ready for us when we are done. Yeah, so this month, the update really has been a lot of work on legal stuff. I was just saying to the guys, I think I've got about 6 different compliance processes that we're working through right now, to get compliant in various different areas, just to shore up our foundations. And for those of you that are tuning in because you saw the somewhat cryptic messages today on our Twitter X platform, we have started putting in listing applications. That's not because we have a date, it's just work we've got to do to get compliant and ready for the time that we do get to launch. So that's really important work. Alongside that, we've also been really plowing through a lot of the exchange applications and pushing on exchanges to get listed. Again, just work that's got to be done, and it's fairly extensive, fairly detailed, and there's a lot of request for very granular information, because what we are communicating to the market is really important, and those things do get tracked at a very granular level by investors. And so lots of making sure that the due diligence is done and that everything is 100% accurate and consistent across what we're talking to with exchanges when we go through the listing process and the preparation thereof. So yeah, just a lot of good work, good solid progress being made in the administrative side of the project, and keep moving really hard and really intentionally towards that launch date. So that's pretty much summarizing my updates. Nothing super amazing or enthralling this month, other than a whole bunch of very, very important and necessary administration.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. So as we're submitting the applications, in parallel to that, it'll be great to come up with, say, new presentations, executive summaries, things like that for a lot of our new, potential investors. And so we started working on that and realized our wordings are just not perfect. And over a weekend, when was that, guys? Was that 2 weeks or?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks? Okay, yeah. Everybody got together, the Kula directors. We completed a bunch of admin work. Most importantly, we had a gentleman named Kong from C20S Ventures joining us to help us clarify our language, our messaging, the theme of which we are building Kula upon. So very appreciative of Kong's work. Shout out to him. And I think now we have a set of wordings and language. It's basically what we talked about, but better. So it's kind of, you know, I'm mainly like a tech guy and tech and science type of guy, but I think now I really start to appreciate the power of words. I mean, that's, language is created for a reason, right? We really get to communicate our idea and our belief, using those powerful words. So we will be presenting our new kind of messaging through all channels to everybody soon, I hope. Right now, we're on the last final stage of voting on the final messaging, the theme, and we'll be presenting through websites, presentations, PDFs, whatnot. Many of you will get to see it, and I hope it will be refreshing for everyone. So that's really exciting, actually. Gets us even more excited about this launch that's coming up. So that's my update.
Very good. For the past few days, I have had the opportunity to host some of our dear friends, business partners, and high-ranking government officials from Nepal, and spending good quality time with them, just deepening relationships. Now we have just yesterday we've traveled up to Washington, D.C. for a week-long event here in the D.C. area, and this is where I will be introducing people to our Nepal business partners. I will be spending time with other officials from around the world. Just last night, had the opportunity to have a great dinner with the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and time with him will continue throughout the week. It will just be a great week of some networking, but really targeted relationship building and continued conversations about what Kula is doing, how we operate, and what we can do in some of these people's specific nations. So a time we look forward to all year, and it will be a great, fruitful week this week, we're believing. So yeah, it's been a wonderful past few days, and we look forward to just finishing out this week strong.
Great. Thanks, Micah. Well, I'd love to invite you guys. We have one question posted. So this is your time, guys. So if you want us to answer questions that you have, please do post them. I'm going to jump into this first one we've got here about succession planning, which is honestly a really great question. The question is, do we have a succession plan? Because this is really, from the questioner's perspective, a great project and not something that can be lost. And quick response to that would be the whole structure of what we built is in what's called a decentralized autonomous organization, although some would say we're not that decentralized and not that autonomous. We kind of sit between the two, like a traditional company, and using this element of technology that allows us to be a little bit more democratized in how we govern ourselves. And one of the upsides of that is that each person that is investing into and in the future buys the Kula token also has the opportunity to be a part of the decision making of the project and its direction. And so one of the inbuilt succession processes that comes with that is a community of vested individuals that really care about and carry the project. And so even as founders, once we hit the launch button and we do go, that puts us on the clock, actually, which gives us a certain amount of time before we have to be handing over in a few years' time our positions and our responsibilities to new people. And so what we intend to do at that time is to be building up and making sure the capacity is inside the organization to be able to hand over well to the people that do follow. And really, with the larger corporate body of engaged and participating individuals, we anticipate that should not be too hard to find. So the whole process does start to move us in that succession planning direction, which we're really excited about. Second question here, which I'm throwing to one of you two, $64,000 question. When will Kula launch? Yeah. What's the plan for exchanges?
Every month we get this question, and every month we are we get more and more excited. I will say this. We do have an internal countdown within Kula to our launch. However, we are not quite ready to announce that date. And with that, because we do have an internal countdown, that also means we have partnerships finished and continuing conversations with exchanges. Again, we cannot announce those just yet, but we will be aligning ourselves and piggybacking on these exchange marketing plans. So not only will you see the announcement come from Kula, but you will also see it on the exchange social medias themselves. So little early to answer that question very specifically, but we have an internal countdown going. So we know when the finish line is, and I would expect that our next AMA is the one where we can finally give our launch date.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can take the next.
I'm up in DC right now. I'm feeling very diplomatic, and so how was my diplomatic answer there? Is that?
It's like using a bunch of words to say nothing, but thank you. I can take the next one. What has happened with Kula Services and white label services? So as Micah mentioned, we have an internal like a countdown towards our launch. So there's all the energy is going towards that. White labeling is still going on, but we're pushing it till after we launch the Kula token. So that's just a simple answer. Just, otherwise the team will be divided and lots of energy will be diverted to other things.
This is funny. The next question that came immediately on the back of that is, when's the next AMA?
Yeah, you said.
Yeah, the first Tuesday of every month. So
I think they were hoping for a different answer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's a good question.
Very clever. I love that one.
It is a lot more fun to answer that question the way we did instead of I don't know. We're still waiting. So it is a lot more fun to answer that question when it comes up and we actually have an answer to it.
Well, one thing is like, trust us. We would love to be like crystal clear about here's a date, here's a clock, this is what's happening to everybody. But it's like, we're like not allowed, basically,
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Next question. You want go for it?
I'm asking the question for you guys to answer it. There's lots of rug pulls in crypto. Do you have a clear path in mind how to keep your investors at ease before and after launch? And a great way for them to communicate with a real person and not a bot. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, rug pulls are a very real problem in the crypto space. Now, we feel like we've got a couple different security nets, I guess you would say, safety nets to prevent from a rug pull. One is this idea that our token is actually backed by real world assets. And so when we own equity in natural resources, anything of real world value, the idea is that the value of our treasury sets a floor price for our token. So while there might be times when the token's volatility dips below the value of our treasury, all that would mean is that it's a good entry price for new investors. And so the floor price is one safety net that we have to keep from a rug pull situation. We also have locked times on tokens that were purchased by early investors and even our team tokens. Those are all locked for a period of time after launch. So early investors will not be selling their tokens, on day one. None of that will happen. And then on that, I guess the third level, and maybe Sam, if you want to get into this a little bit more, we will have partnerships with market makers, and this will kind of manage the buy and sell demand for our token on each exchange.
Yeah, so market makers create or help with liquidity, right? Provision. The worst thing is when people try to buy a token, there's nothing to be bought. Trying to sell a token, you can't sell it. So market makers is the one to step in to do that on the open market. We are having multiple strategies to figure out what's the best way to provide liquidity to our buyers and sellers. And it's quite involved actually. But it's like, you know, in the world right now, there are basically two models that's mostly most used. One is called a retainer model, where projects pay a monthly fee to hire the market maker. Another one is the option loan model, where projects basically become the call option writer and provide the option to the market makers for achieving certain results. So it's like we had to study that and find the best for our project. And that is a thing. And then we worry about like the selling pressure as well from, you know, when the tokens like unlocked, you know, when the cliff happened, or over time, what's going to happen. If you look at most projects, there's a pretty clear, like a pump and dump, almost like a chart pattern. And we wish to avoid that. So we need to provide a bunch of strategies to support that level. And how do we do so? And more importantly, we, you know, a lot of these big exchanges called a tier one, they want the project to be trading for a period of time, usually about a year, before they can consider listing them. And the volume, the interest, you know, authentic interest really matter to them. So that's in part could be helped by having market makers providing that liquidity. So there's all the considerations we have to kind of, you know, take into our consideration to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, good. Is the Kula team growing every day? How will things progress now that Kula has a CCO? The Kula team has been growing very slowly, just because we are stewarding our funds very wisely. We have to be very smart with how we spend our funds. Now, once we launch, that's going to be really the time to scale our company internally. And we have a phenomenal people development guild, which are going to be onboarding people. And part of their job is, of course, to make sure that each one of those candidates align with our core values and align with the mission of Kula. And so there is more or less a hiring process that will be put in place. And so we will be scaling after launch. That's very true. The CCO, Paul Jackson, is just one of the many C-suite individuals that we will be hiring shortly after launch. The founders, you know, we're visionaries. We created this idea. We are not necessarily, our CVs or our resumes do not necessarily imply that we would be a good CEO or a good chief financial officer or whatever to run the company, right? There are people out there far more qualified to run an international company than we are. Now, we will always continue with our presence on the board and still steer our C-suite, the chief executive officers, and really make sure that the project is going along the way we envisioned it. But we will be scaling this project quite intensely, I would assume, here in the next 6 to 12 months. So
maybe I could like jump in on the next two, is that all right? And then I'm gonna
yeah.
pass specifically to the Nepal thing to you, Micah, back. But you know, like, and a couple more questions even in terms of like what comes next with Kula. But of course, we're working really hard towards a launch date, which we'll be able to communicate more on later. But over the next 6 to 12 months, the main focus really is making investments into the projects that we've both lined up, and also doing more exploratory work to onboard more great projects into the ecosystem that fit within the ethos of what we're trying to do. So we've been working really hard over the last couple of years, really lining up 2 or 3 really clear, very solid projects that we think will be successful for Kula. And then we've got prospectively another 4 or 5 as well kind of lined up, which we'll be more intensely involved in. But over the next year, whilst we're looking to launch and then getting that process out and solidifying the fundamentals and using that capital to invest in projects, really the focus moves into the whole point of the why, right? If we've been working hard for the last 3 years, is really to be investing in great projects. And so some of those, like we've talked about already Malaysia, but also then back in Nepal. And I'm going to kick the ball back to you, Micah, just on some of those projects and the specific question that's there on Hydro.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, lots of conversations around Bhutan. I've been having these conversations for a little over a year now with the country of Nepal. And this is where we've signed our contract with Big Land Hydro. We have 50% equity in two licenses for just over 100 megawatts of power. We also have conversations going on with other owners of hydropower that's actually in operation that's up and operational right now, with all the way to the likes of about 400 megawatts. So the power is there, and there's all kinds of opportunities, not just for Bitcoin mining, but for computing power, period. And that is definitely one of the avenues that we are pursuing. So yes, the conversations have been going on. They continue to go on, and will be one of our most immediate capital investments after launch. We've already made portions of our investment into that project, and we will continue to fund that after launch. Let's see here. If no capital gains taxes on the US-based crypto becomes a reality, will that change how and where you do business? Honestly, it's not going to change anything for us. We were planning to do business in the US if regional DAO projects came up. Whether or not we headquarter an entity in the US, right now our corporate structure has been built in such a way that we are, I guess, diverse around the world in different jurisdictions and for different reasons. Until the US becomes the best jurisdiction for one of our entities, I don't see anything changing for the near future, but who knows? This market and this industry is always changing. It's always fluid, and we just never know. We've structured our company in such a way that we are adaptable and we can adjust with times or different regulatory frameworks. But right now, we are confident that we have the best setup that is out there. So. Of course, what exchange will we be using? We will be announcing that most likely the same time we announce our launch date. So.
Maybe you want these assets.
Yeah, the real world asset phrase is all over crypto blockchain projects and seems to be growing a great deal. So once Kula regulations are approved, what sets Kula apart from the many other RWA projects? This is a great question. We've all seen it as we attend these blockchain conferences. As soon as you say you're an RWA project, you get the biggest eye rolls, like, oh, you're tokenizing real world assets. In my experience, and again, this might be one question where we all have 3 different answers, but in my experience, after I think the first or second blockchain conference I attended, I switched it. I wouldn't tell people we're tokenizing real world assets. We say we're tokenizing governance around real world assets, and that shifts their mindset. Their ears open up. They're much more intrigued at the project that we're building, because that's something that's never been done before. I think that pretty much answers the next question as well, right?
Yeah, it does.
Go on to the next question from the community.
Yeah. I can jump in. We are pretty clear. The guys that run the marketing guild in Kula have got a very clear pathway lined out from the moment we kind of go live to when we launch, which is exciting to see. And we will definitely be ramping up with both, like Micah said, the exchanges that we're partnering with, and also then internally with our own marketing push as we get towards that launch. And so you'll be seeing a lot more. And there is more to come. And again, it's really, we don't want to give away too much at this point in terms of what that looks like or what shape or structure that has, but we will certainly be investing a lot more and providing a lot more upgraded exposure in the channels that we have socially and just in different strategies that we've got worked out towards that launch date. So things are definitely going to be increasing, working with key opinion leaders, more posts, more articles, and all of the stuff that you really need to kind of incentivize the community to get on board to the launch date. So lots more to come.
What's been the most impactful project Kula has supported so far? And how do you measure long-term success in these initiatives?
Most impactful. That's hard to answer. I think each community that we invest in, we work with, we set up MOU with, or we set up the regional DAO with, the impact is all different. Many times it's, there will be times it's really at a personal level, like individually, they are getting paid more. They're realizing their power to vote and their voices matter. There are times we go to a place, you don't really reach the individual folks because you're at the governmental level. So then we are reviving, at least parts of their economy. And that's a trigger down effect. So it's hard to say like which is the most impactful, I would say. There is plan though, however, internally that we can hopefully quantify the impact. And that is a huge body of work. Thankfully, Dr. Turner here has done a lot of work on. So we are trying to turn that into something that we can probably gather the data on and reflect it to our community. So it's really hard to say like most, but we have been to many of the places. I can speak probably for all of us is before Kula, we never dreamt that we'll be going to some of these locations, right? So that's really interesting. And seeing people's lives change, like literally in front of our eyes many times, that is most impactful to me personally, just to get that feeling that you're actually like you exist for a good reason, So that's really nice.
I want to tell one little story from last December. Sam and I were in Malaysia, and it doesn't really necessarily speak to that question of what's the most impactful, but it's just those moments of impact that I think they're intangible, but they go to the very heart of what we're trying to achieve in the project. And we had the privilege of working with a team, and we're just assessing, we're still in that assessment stage of, is this a project we want to invest into? And the purpose of that visit was really about values alignment. Is this a team that can deliver on the project that they're proposing? And where do they sit in terms of values? And I'll let Sam speak whether he agrees or not, but I think we left with a very strong sense of these guys really get what the heart of what we're trying to achieve is, and we agree with what they're trying to do because we align. And it was great. And I had this one interaction with a key lady on that team, and she looked me in the eyes and said, we're the little guy. No one believes in us. No one's interested in us. Everyone wants to come here and make all the money they can off of us and walk away with leaving us with nothing. And this is the first time in 8 years of trying to find investment where we finally find a team of people that are interested in who we are and what we're about. And this is the first time in 8 years of trying to find investment where we finally find a team of people that are interested in who we are and what we're about. And this is the first time in 8 years of trying to find investment where we finally find a team of people that are interested in who we are and what we're about. and her eyes started to well up with tears. And I think for me, that was one of those moments that I love about a project, because when it comes down to it, we do all of this legal work, we do all of this, we talk all about the crypto stuff, we're filling out forms and all of the crazy of all that. But when it comes down to it, it's like, for me, that was the heart of what we're trying to achieve, because that's what we're about, right? These communities that otherwise would be overlooked, ignored, displaced, screwed over by larger conglomerates of business. And for the first moment, this lady was finding something of like hope in the potential partnership that we have. And it makes it really hard, right? Because we've still got to do our DD, and we don't know whether that's a safe project to invest into fully yet or not. But the heartstrings pull, right? Because it's like, oh man, if I could give you the world, I would, because that's the why of our projects. And we want to see the little guy really released to be able to make money for themselves, do well, but also bless their community and give us a great return. So I think that would be one small story from this last 6 weeks that, for me, talks about the impact of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think the one, I mean, in fact, one of the questions a little bit later here is there a limit to the assets that will be added? Frankly, there's really not a limit to the assets, but one of the most impactful for me is going to be our first one. And in fact, the last time that Chris came to visit me in the States, he brought a photo of a child. The first person in the village was this little child to take the first drink of water out of the well that we dug in Lusangazi. So while there's really no limit to what we can do, one of the most impactful for me is always going to be that first one. I remember waiting, and I think it was Thanksgiving Day or the day after in the US when we got the call that we hit water. And that was just a very exciting time to see the money invested all go to now this village in Zambia having fresh water closer than they've ever had it before. So I look at that picture and that impacts me on a daily basis every time I'm in my office. Okay, this one comes from X Spaces. I will also love to know what strategies would you recommend for increasing awareness and education about Kula and cryptocurrency in Nigeria, particularly among underserved communities? Really, that's going to come through marketing, and as we grow our footprint in Africa, and like I said, I'm literally in DC this week, meeting with a lot of prominent people from Africa. Going to dinner tonight with a large group of, I guess I'll just say, very important people from Kenya, and we have deep connections in Rwanda and Uganda, and it's these relationships are just ever growing. Our footprint is just continuing to grow. So whether it is from word of mouth in Africa of what we do, that it just organically grows to Nigeria, it could also be, you and your friends specifically speaking to people in Nigeria, or spreading the word yourself if you're in that country. It's really a community effort. This is a DAO, right? Everybody, if you're a token holder and you want to see Kula spread to your local community, spread it, bring it. What's the word? Shill on social media, right? It's grown so quickly, just word of mouth, because we've worked with governments, and governments speak to other governments and start talking about what we've done in their country, and that's the fun part about what we've built so far just before launch. Once we launch and this thing is worldwide and actually operational, who knows how quickly we can grow, because everything we've done so far has been just through organic relationships.
It's good. Last question. I don't, maybe Sam or Micah, you can answer this one, but do you have a pre-sale before final launch? If so, are you able to provide any details on that game plan?
The only tokens that we have sold prior to launch have been with just a handful of early investors, angel investors, if you will. We have had $100,000 minimum to meet because, and really that was a legal compliance criteria that we had to have, just because we didn't know exactly what category our token would fit into. For the possibility of it being a security token, we set up a minimum investment of $100,000. And because we were able to fund a lot of this project ourselves, we weren't really, we didn't need a whole bunch, 10,000 early investors to buy 100 tokens to get us to launch. We have just a handful of early investors that have believed in the project from way early on, and they met the minimum requirements, and they've helped us fund the project. So we're not going to do pre-sale to the general public before launch, because frankly, that's when you see a lot of these rug pulls, and a lot of them will sell it right after, right on the launch date, and then you've got big problems with your chart. So the only tokens we've sold so far are just to these angel investors.
Yeah, one of the things I would like to add about this is if you look around, like a lot of projects in crypto space, the fully diluted value is about 20 million, 30 million maybe. And so this pre-sale become quite important, right? Micah mentioned, right? If you get 10,000 people, 100,000 people, everybody with like, say, I don't know, $1,000 or a few $100s even to do this pre-sale, that becomes their, quite a majority of their product capital. But for us, because we are investing in, hydroelectric power, right? Regenerative timber projects, or I don't know, whatever stuff that come in our way that we had to do a DD on or eventually decide to invest in, the capital expenditure is quite high. So, honestly, like, the pre-sale that might be quite meaningful to other projects will not really be that meaningful to us. So like we avoided that step. So angel investors, people really believe what we do. At that point, it was accredited. And then later, once we get the regulatory clearance, we can avoid that hurdle. Then the entire world can participate. So that's the game plan here.
Okay, I'm going to jump in on this one. Once launched, will Kula continue to invest in drilling more wells in underdeveloped countries and developing other resources for those countries to access? We're going to drill hundreds of wells, I believe, in that time, and we're going to invest in many, many assets that are going to catalyze microeconomic development and systemic change across many nations in the duration of this project. And I think I can't wait. I literally cannot wait. I think we get into the weeds of this process of going through the regulatory compliance and all of the legal stuff. And yet the joy that's really ahead is seeing all of that serve the goal that we've been moving towards, which is exactly what this question is digging at. I'm thrilled and excited to see people that genuinely don't get an opportunity in life because they were associated somehow to this project. And I am so thrilled that we've got a growing community of people like you guys on this call that are passionate about those same outcomes. And really, I think this is a time to say to everybody, this is a time for you to bring everyone you know with that mindset, that vision, that desire to see that type of impact to this project as we move into our launch window and as we move towards delivering this project and seeing those hundreds of wells and those different projects and those assets realized in the coming weeks, months, and years.
And in fact, we should have news here very soon about a well in Senegal that we are drilling. So it's not just like Chris said, it's not just a one and done thing. This is something that's been on our hearts from day one. Excellent. And with that, those are all of our questions, gentlemen. Great questions today, community. Yes, great questions. Well, after this one, I'm assuming we're going to have a pretty good crowd next AMA, right? The first Tuesday of March will be should be one wrought with fun announcements. So
Awesome.
Anything
Thank
else to
you.
add, gentlemen?
No, see you
Okay,
the 4th of
excellent.
March, everybody.
Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful February. We'll see you all in March.